Hi, my name is Ben Long. I'm the author of Complete Digital Photography, now in its seventh edition. I want to talk to you a little bit about shooting mode. I've got a Canon camera here, and it's got a mode dial on it that lets me choose from amongst several different shooting modes. Most cameras offer a choice of shooting mode. Sometimes it's a dial, sometimes it's a menu option. Shooting modes simply control what decisions are left up to you and what decisions are going to be made by the camera. So for example, I've got an automatic mode, I've got program mode, I've got shutter and aperture priority mode, I've got a manual mode, I've got a lot of other modes besides. A lot of people I've noticed, a lot of students that I have, think that as you go further up the mode dial, you're somehow unlocking all this great extra power in your camera, that you're becoming a much more sophisticated photographer. And that's just not really true. All shooting modes have their uses, and what will make you a more sophisticated photographer is understanding when to use different modes. Your choice of shooting mode should be contingent on your subject matter and your current shooting situation. What a lot of people don't realize is that program mode actually offers a fair amount of manual override power. So I've set my camera into program mode here. So what would normally happen is if I half press my shutter button, the camera is going to make a lot of decisions. It's going to autofocus for me. It's going to meter the light in my scene and choose a shutter speed and aperture. If I'm in auto ISO mode, then it's going to automatically choose an ISO. If I'm in auto white balance, then it's going to automatically choose a white balance. It's going to lock all that stuff in. It's going to beep at me, and then I can take my picture. Most of the time, that's going to be great for just wandering around, quickly shooting snapshots, that kind of thing. Program mode is always going to make pretty safe choices in terms of shutter speed and aperture. It's going to choose a shutter speed that's going to be good for handheld shooting to reduce camera shake. It's going to choose an aperture that won't be so small that you get really deep depth of field or so wide open that you get really shallow depth of field. It's going to pick nice mid-range choices that are going to be best for a variety of situations. So when I'm walking around just shooting quickly, a lot of times I'll just leave the camera in program mode. But maybe you're shooting like that and you come across, say, a flower, and you start looking through the viewfinder and working your shot and realizing, wow, what I really need right now is shallow depth of field. I need a wider aperture, and program mode has chosen, say, 5.6, which isn't really working for me. Now, for any given metering of a scene, there are a number of reciprocal combinations of shutter speed and aperture that will yield the same overall illumination. In program mode on most cameras, I can change through all of those different reciprocal combinations without ever leaving program mode. On Canon cameras, this is called program shift. On Nikon cameras, it's called flexible program. So going back to my little flower scenario, let's say I've been out shooting in program mode. I see this flower, I quickly get up to the camera, I frame my shot, I half press the button to meter, I see that aperture of 5.6 and I think I want a wider aperture. I can just turn this knob right here and the camera will automatically cycle through all the reciprocal shutter speed and aperture combinations that will yield me that same overall illumination. So I can quickly go through until I get a combination that has a nice wide aperture. Now I've got my shallow depth of field, I can take the shot. I've done all of that manual control without ever leaving program mode. And of course the other manual control I have in program mode is exposure compensation, which says, well camera, you've metered it this way, I want you to overexpose it by a stop or underexpose it by 2 stops. On Canon, that's usually this dial back here on the back of the camera. Nikon cameras have a button and a dial that you press that's right up here underneath your forefinger, so it's very easy to reach. So with these 2 controls, my program shift and my exposure compensation, I can, within program mode, dial in whatever depth of field control that I want. I can dial in whatever motion stopping control that I want by changing shutter speed. And if I need to over or underexpose, say to compensate for a backlighting situation, I might want to overexpose. Or maybe I'm shooting something really black and I want to be sure it ends up a nice deep black, I want to underexpose. I can do all of that without ever leaving program mode. Now, after that flower shot, if I continue to walk around and just see more flowers and really wanted to stay with depth of field control, at that point I might change my mode. I might go to aperture priority so that I could just dial in a nice wide aperture and keep that shallow depth of field throughout my shoot. But don't shortchange program mode. It's a really nice way of being able to shoot quickly, and with the advantage of program shift or flexible program on Nikon and exposure compensation, you've still got lots of manual overrides. Other cameras offer these features. Check out your manual for your specific camera for more details.